So you just finished the beginner's course. Now what do? I'm going to talk about something that is important to you after you finish the beginner's course, because it's something that is hard to explain at the time. Usually we're teaching you how to aim, how to anchor, not really the complexities, but today I'll be going through the load transfer and your back. So in hindsight, this is one of the first things you should really teach someone, but it's really hard to explain. And when I do the beginner's courses, it's one of those things that no one will leave with back tension or understanding of it. Today I just want to clarify and explain what good back tension plus load transfer is onto your back. It's really important, but it's hard to break it down and really quantify it when you're on a shooting line with 20 other people. So back tension really is just using your back muscles instead of drawing just with your arm muscles. That's the real basic of it. There's a couple ways to really know if someone's using their back or not. So one thing really prominent is that their arm, their elbow, will be pointing outward instead of back behind them. And this I see a lot, which is completely fair. Everyone who starts out, there's no way that you're gonna understand that you gotta have your elbow facing behind you, and you don't understand how to get it behind you as well. And when you're teaching someone, it's one of those things where it's just like, try and focus so hard. It's really hard to explain it at the time because you're trying to focus on, oh, make sure you touch them with your anchor, and they can't because they're trying to get their back around and also try and keep their wrists soft. All these things, and it gets really confusing, and then they're trying to aim at the same time and it just gets lost in translation. So I'll just give you a basic understanding of what it looks like from my point of view if I was watching you and you weren't using your back, and in comparison to if you were using your back. Now, just as a little disclaimer, I've been doing archery a long time. I don't always use my back, but I do have the muscles, so it looks a little bit more easier from my point of view when I actually do use my back. And I'll go through with you an easy way how to use your back in a more complex way a little bit later on. So I'm sure that looked easy, and it is kind of for me at the moment in time, but it's one of these things that I always do as a warm-up as well with my stretch band, so likewise. And it's just because it's an easy thing to forget, using your muscles in your back. Take all that away, don't worry about that. I'm just going to talk to you in a simple way of using your back, and that is just contracting your shoulder blades together. A really simple way of saying using your back. Talking more about the draw shoulder, the bow shoulder 100% as well, but that I guess I can cover in a different video. Contracting your shoulder blades together. Just do both. It can be a little bit easier if it is. Do both. If it isn't, just do one at a time. But make sure you're not doing too much work on overloading on your shoulder, so don't use too much weight. So stretch bands are great for this. Even heavy stretch bands, like honestly, that obviously you can lengthen or shorten how much you need it anyway. But I've taken my shirt off. I'm just gonna see if I can get a good representation of what I am using my back for, how it looks with using my muscles. So that's basically, in simple terms, what a load transfer looks like. It's just transferring the load off of your arm and onto your back. This is done for multiple reasons. Number one, it does straighten up your shot and it's a lot stronger. So if you do exercise those muscles more, you'll notice that you can actually shoot a lot more arrows. Another really important thing is obviously you injure yourself a lot less if you're using the right muscles. And this is a really basic way of using your back. With your shoulder blades, is actually they're just squeezing together like that. They're just moving together. Without using your shoulder blades, basically they would just be sitting there doing nothing. And it's all just coming from this arm. And obviously at the beginning of your draw, a really important thing I should state is that you won't be able to be using your back in the initial part of the drawing, depending on the way you stand. But it's very common for the first couple inches that you'll be pulling, and then you transfer into your back, load transfer. Don't feel bad if you're not using your back all the time. Sometimes it will just be a wind in or pull down in. And as you develop the back muscles, you obviously get a smoother feeling, and sometimes you'll go directly straight onto your back. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like on a lot weaker side. So I just did my predominant draw shoulder, obviously. I do shoot both every now and then. but a lot less on the right side if this was my bow hand. So what you're looking at right now is obviously my feet, an arrow, and the shadow of my tripod. And the most important part is you're looking at my feet. So this is what you've probably been taught a closed stance, or in some cases maybe like that, which is called an open stance. So either one of these, mostly I'm going to be talking about closed stance right now. This is basic. You don't have to move your torso anywhere because your legs are already in a line facing down the shooting line. So that arrow is the direction of the target, which is faced to the left of me. For back tension, what this means is when I'm coming down, I don't have to be rotating my torso. I'm not thinking about any of my other body parts. It also means I have to come around into my back a little bit more. In some cases, where I said some of people may have been told to have an open stance like this. Sometimes this helps getting your back because your back's already closer to the target. On an extreme end, if I did a 90-degree angle, this means my back's basically instantly engaged. It means I have to be coming around with my torso as well to be direction to the target, but my back's engaging quicker on this. But you rarely see this. Some Turkish archers do shoot like this, I think. From my knowledge, I think clout, I think I do believe this helps in some cases getting longer distances. Mostly this, or this you'll see, I shoot with an open stance, part of the body coming around in your shots. If you're shooting with an open stance, we get an arrow to represent. So that part of the heel lines up with your toes, basically. That's a simple way of looking at it. So if I put an arrow down, that's what it would look like, if you haven't been taught that already. Okay, I'm just putting my jacket on because it's extremely cold right now. So if I were to review my footage, I would say I'm using probably 20, 25, maybe 30% of my back. Obviously, that's seen through the elbow. I feel like a lot better using my thumb ring because you get a longer draw. It feels a little bit easier to come around into the back. But that might just be me. That part I'm not actually sure. But the concept still remains. You should be able to come around into your back, transfer the load, and you should be able to actually hold it there longer than if you're just pulling. Because if you're pulling the string, the muscles are all tensed up, your hands taut, because if your elbow is outward, your hand has to be taut to get onto your face, make good contact. That's no matter what draw you use, you're touching your face and you're pulling, hand's always going to be in a taut position. Whereas if you're using your back, everything's nice and in line, nice and strong. It should come down into your shot. A natural sequence should just be landing on your face. And obviously you can overdraw, and that's it should be a natural, but it should be even more natural to have your hands on your face and keep them there, because you're not having to move and crump your hand into position on your face. That's a very general, but it's really important after you've finished any sort of beginner's course or any sort of basics of archery, because this is probably the next thing that you would want to be working on, and it's one thing that you'll probably be working on for the rest of the time doing archery, unless you're an Olympian. Then you might be different, but are we all Olympians?
I know what you're thinking. I've known it since you tuned in. You're thinking, I can't freestyle rap. Well, I've had it up to here with people assuming that ogres can't break it down. Somebody lay down a beat.